Hi, it's Shannon here, back from houseimprovements.com, and I'm out of the cabin build still plugging away. It's almost the end of November. It's getting cold, it's getting cool in here, but I'm trying to get insulated, my air and vapor barrier installed so I can start getting some heat on and work at some drywall. But anyways, in today's video, I want to show you how I'm going to install the air vapor barrier on the walls. And as well as that, while I'm doing it, I will show you what I do to seal all my joints around windows, plug-ins, to the floor, to other pieces of vapor barrier, all the fun stuff. So we're going to get into it pretty quickly. The great thing about doing your own vapor barrier is you really don't need a lot of techie type tools or anything. You basically need a hammer stapler or some kind of stapler with at least a 1/4 inch, or well, let's say 3/8 staples minimum. You're going to need a sharp utility knife. You're going to need a caulking gun and some acoustical sealant. This is one brand. I know some of you guys in the States, let's see, have a little bit of trouble finding this stuff, so depending where you are. I'm thinking if you're having trouble finding it, you're probably not required to have an air vapor barrier in your area, but I don't know. I definitely, on other videos, had a lot of people down south having trouble finding something actually called acoustical sealant. So anyways, you'll need a caulking gun, tube of sealant. You also need a roll of tape. So up here in Canada, I'm not 100% sure about the US, but in Canada, we're required now to use this blue sheathing tape for our vapor barrier. I try to use this tape, I would say at least 80% of everywhere that I need to do a seal on vapor barrier, only because the acoustical is super messy. It can be. You really got to be careful with it. The one place I really like to use acoustical caulking still is along the bottom at the floor, where the vapor barrier meets the floor and you're trying to seal that very bottom corner. It's the only place, because this doesn't really stick that well to, say, concrete or to wood. So you need the acoustical sealant there for sure. This sticks like crazy to PVC, plastic, poly itself. It sticks really well to that, so those aren't issues. It's just where you're having to seal down to some wood or some concrete usually is where I still like to use the acoustical. Also, you're obviously going to need a roll of poly or two. It comes in all different sizes, but the one thing you need to do for sure is make sure that whatever you buy is actually approved to be used for air vapor barrier. It'll have a little stamp on it. I'm not sure if you can even see it in this lighting, but right down here it says vapor barrier, and of course up here in Canada we have to have French on there too. And then it's got the specifications from the National Building Code on there. In the US, I'm sure yours is much the same. It needs to be stamped. So there's no point in going and installing this in your house only for the inspector to come and say, oh, you got to rip that down because it's not the right stuff. So now you've thrown away some material and you've thrown away, a day or two of labor. So you might as well buy the right stuff right off the start. Okay, so those are the few things you need. You might need a step ladder or whatever, that sort of thing, but that's pretty basic. So to start out with, what I always like to do is I like to clean my room right out, sweep the floor, vacuum it if you can. I forgot my vacuum today, but I just gave things a good sweep. You just want to get rid of all that dust and sawdust and those sorts of things that's laying on the floor, because as you're dealing with this poly and it hits the floor and whatever, the static in the poly attracts all that stuff. And then the next thing you know, you got it all over the poly and all over yourself. And then when it comes to sealing things up, that dust can be sometimes a problem as well. So cleaner your areas, the better off you're going to be. Before we get going, click the thumbs up. You got to do that. You always got to do that. It helps me out immensely. I don't care whose video you're watching. If you like the video, like the person, the contributor, just click the thumbs up. It helps us all. Subscribe to the channel. If you just kind of stumbled across this, you're going to want to check our channel out. I'm telling you, we've got so many videos. We're well over 400 videos, probably pushing on to 500. I think the year we started this cabin build, we've posted probably 40 videos just on this build. So there's a lot of stuff coming up still, and we've just got tons and tons of content. So please subscribe, click the thumbs up, go check out our channel. We have a free forum. Do you have questions? You know, you're sitting here right now and you've already got questions rolling through your head. Write them down and then come to the forum after and start asking questions. Our forum's free. You're not signing up for a membership. You're not doing any of that stuff. You're just logging in. You do have to sign up with a password and all that stuff, but it costs you nothing, and you start asking questions. I'm on there every day, and we have some regular contributors as well that help me out there quite a bit. So just get on there and ask your questions. All right, let's get rolling with this. That's enough jibber jabber. You could have a tape measure too if you want to add that to your list of tools. Normally what I do is I just estimate it out here. So I'll walk over to my wall and just start reeling some off. We want a bit of overlap there. We've got some poly here that's coming from another room. So we want to overlap onto it by 3 or 4 inches. And we got to get over to this corner. And then we're going to go down this wall too. So I want to show you how to seal around this final window once we get to that point. So I'm just kind of reeling out a whole whack of this stuff. And I think I've gone off camera now. So let's come back here. So we've got it figured out basically, roughly. I know this poly's loud and noisy. It's probably drowning me out. We've roughly reeled out what we need for this poly. Just going to take our Olfa knife and cut fairly straight if you can. Cut that off the roll. So there, we've got our poly cut off. Your rolls of poly come in all kinds of sizes. I've got 8-foot walls here, so I like to deal with this poly. It's 8'6", or maybe it's even 9 feet. I think it's 8'6", because you need a little bit extra in your height, right? So you've seen how big the roll is. It obviously isn't 8 feet long, but the poly's on there and it's folded in half. Okay, so when I spread this out, we've got our 8'6", or whatever it ends up being over here. So if you didn't watch my video on doing the ceiling, you really need to go check it out. But anyways, on the ceiling, we left some poly hanging down. So we went across the ceiling, and then there's some hanging down on these outer walls where we're going to have wall poly, wall vapor barrier. So we've got something up there to seal to. I've got some poly coming from behind these other walls from another room. So we're going to lap onto this poly here and seal to that. We're going to come around the corner up here. And you can see I've still got poly hanging down the wall here from the ceiling as well. Okay, so that we need that poly there to be able to seal to. Okay, so to start out with, I'm going to start over in this left-hand corner here. And really simple. You don't need your acoustical yet. You don't need your tape yet. Throw your knife and your stapler in your pocket, and that's all you're going to need here for a few minutes. So you can see I've got the top corner up here. I've got this poly on the wall coming from the other room. I've got my new poly. I need to separate it out. Okay, so I've got my poly all kind of split open so that I don't know how it was folded in half anyways. I've got it opened up. I need to overlap this poly onto this poly and up here. So we want to try to hang it fairly straight. It's just going to make life a lot easier for us. So, and like I said, I have to overlap onto this poly so I have something to seal to. But yet I don't want this top edge here right up in the corner. I want to leave it down so that I can tape onto here and onto here and make my seal. Makes sense, right? So what I like to do is use this joint that I can see between my double top plate. That's already should be pretty level, should be flat. So I'm going to use that as my line to line up the top edge of my wall poly. So we want to hang our poly nice and straight. And I'm going to use this joint between my double top plate all the way along there as my guide for the top edge of my poly. That way, I can hang it to there. It's hanging pretty straight, which is going to benefit us in getting it hanging nice on the wall. And it also leaves it down 1.5 inches, so I have room to tape from the wall poly to the ceiling poly. Okay, so I'll hang it along there. I'll put a few staples along the top edge and go along that way. If I was going to use acoustical up here, I wouldn't want to staple right along this top edge because I need to pull that back and get my acoustical on. So what I would do is staple further down the studs, so then I have this little flap that I can pull down, get my acoustical, put my, flip this back up, press it into the acoustical, then I can staple it. Okay, in my case, like I said, I like to use the tape as much as possible. So anyways, I'm going to use tape up there for sure. So I've got my stapler, I've got my poly, and I've got an overlap onto here. So I can just get a couple staples in here. So it's kind of hanging. Grab my poly, move over a little bit, throw a couple more in. What do I got going on here? Yeah, that'll be fine. Okay, I got that corner. So now that's the first thing I want to do is go all the way along this entire piece of poly that I've got and hang it up from the top. So I'm just going to move down the wall a little bit, slide my ladder along, and I'm just trying to keep myself straight with that line, right? If I do that, I should have not too many wrinkles. Okay, so just get it all unfolded. Make sure you don't have it twisted or anything. Looks like I'm going to be all right. And I'm just going to continue across the wall here. Oh, what did I do with my stapler? Okay, so far so good. Pretty easy, right? Absolutely DIY friendly. So now I've got to a corner, right? So I want to make sure I try to get a staple right back into that corner, kind of as far as I can. As my poly's in that corner, I don't want it to be so tight coming around the corner that it doesn't push back right back into the corner fully. Let's draw a picture. Okay, so let's pretend we're looking at our walls here, right? We're looking down. This is our corner up there where I was talking. Yeah, so we've got our walls, right? We're looking down at it. We don't want our poly, we want our poly to be nice and tight in this corner, or even just a little bit of slack in there. So when we put the drywall on, we're not fighting that poly. If the poly, and I'm going to over exaggerate it, if the poly came across the corner like that, that's going to really suck, right? Because now I can't get my drywall back into the corner, right? So we want to, I like to come into my first corner, staple my poly as close back in here as I can, get a staple. And then if anything, I'll actually leave a little wrinkle in that corner, just a little extra poly, and then put another staple coming out of the corner. And that gives me a little bit of play back in that corner. Okay, so if I push my finger right back in that corner, I know I'm pushing the poly in, and I'll just kind of grab the poly with my thumb and just grab just a little bit excess from my right, and try not to staple my finger, and that should give me a little bit extra in that corner to work with. Okay, and then I can just continue along. Yep, got that a little low. There we go, that's better. Remember, I'm following that joint in the top plates. I'm missing one piece of poly on the ceiling, so I can't quite get right across this window. We're going to call that the end. Okay, so I've got the poly just all hanging here, right? just hanging loose down the wall. I can go and kind of straighten it out. Okay, get it hanging all nice and straight. Now, because we used that joint to line ourselves up with the top edge of the poly, it should, in theory, all hang quite nicely, not get a whole bunch of wrinkles, that sort of stuff. If I didn't get it hanging too straight, then when I get into corners and start working around stuff, it starts getting all wonky. And 9 times out of 10, it's not really a huge deal, but it's just so much easier to deal with if it's hanging fairly decently straight. You can see, you know, it's just naturally wanting to hang down the wall. Okay, so it looks all good here. You know, we don't have any huge wrinkles or anything. So I'm going to go about halfway down the height of the wall from the ceiling. I'm just going to put a staple on every stud. It's really not necessary to go all crazy with your staples. I mean, we can throw another one up here. Whatever, if that's what you want. But in reality, once your drywall's on, that's going to hold your poly on there. So you don't need 1,000 freaking staples in every stud. Okay. So normally what I do, I might go every couple feet, whatever you want to do. Get myself right back into the corner here. Oop, right there. Now we've got our corner again, right? So here's our wall. This would be the north wall of my cabin. Here's the west wall. Okay, and I've got the corner right here. So you can see we left ourselves some slack there so that we can deal with this corner and not have issues down the road when we're doing our drywall. So I'm just going to put the odd staple here. I don't need to staple both sides. As long as I've got enough slack, that's all I need is just get it stapled in one area. And I'll come around this corner a little bit. Like now, we got to move down further yet, right? Because we need this to go all the way to the floor. It's hanging to the floor. So I'll go down another couple feet. Staple. All right, now I'm down at the height where my receptacles are getting close. Here's one, there's another one down there. And also, I'm going to use acoustical, remember, to seal this to the floor. So this is about as far as I want to staple for now. All right, because I want to deal with sealing around these electrical devices, and sealing to the floor. Sealing here, sealing up there, right? Kind of getting things all ready. So this wall, I would stop there because I'm ready for taping and stuff. This wall over here with the window, I'm not quite at the point that I can stop yet. Get up out of our way. So we had stapled around the corner here already in a couple spots, right? You can do the same thing, just work my way down that corner, making sure I have some slack in that corner. I don't want to staple any lower than any of the receptacles that I come to. Okay, just like that. Now, we're ready to start doing a few things. First thing I can do is I can cut this poly around this window. Okay, so I'm just going to take my knife and I'm going to cut, this is the middle of the window, I'm going to cut on the outside of the frame. Just use the frame as a guide. I'm going to cut this plastic out all the way around the window. Cut the side and the bottom first. Be smart about this, so I don't have the top falling down on my face and making everything hang crooked. That. Okay. Now we got a chunk we can use somewhere else if we need it. Okay, so we have our window cut out. We'll deal with that in a little bit. We are going to go to a receptacle. So we've got our receptacle here, you can see it. And around the receptacles, there was already installed these vapor boxes. The electrician would have done that when he put the boxes in. So now what I want to do is I need to cut this poly out so that I can tape the edge of it to that. I need to cut the front poly out that I just hung back a little bit so I can tape it to this vapor box to make the seal there. We're just going to get a slit started. Come on. It's amazing how much sharp blade makes a difference in cutting plastic. You wouldn't think it would take much, but sharper the better. Okay, so this is one way you can do it, is you cut, oh, I need to go a little bigger. Remember, we're going to tape this, right? So one way to do it is just to cut this plastic a little bit wider than the actual hole in this vapor box so that it's exposed and we can tape right to it. And then we take our blue vapor barrier tape. I've got my tape. I just need to cut some pieces here. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to show you a couple different ways to do this. So we're leaving the vapor box behind the poly we hung, and we're taping the two together. Okay. It's like 0 degrees Celsius here where I'm working today, so it takes a little extra friction to get the tape stuck well. Okay, so that's one way. So we've got that poly box, vapor box, bag, whatever you want to call it, in behind the plug. And now we've got it sealed to this to stop drafts around the plugins. Now, if we go over to our other one, okay, so here's our second way of doing it, is I'm still going to cut a hole through the poly, but I'm just going to cut it about the same size as this device box. And then we're going to pull the lip of the vapor bag, box, whatever you want to call it, through that hole and tape it to the poly. Okay. So we're just cutting a slightly smaller hole compared to the first method I showed you. Okay, like so. And then I want to pull all this inside the room through this hole that we cut. Okay, so you've got the small hole, and now we can just do exactly what we did before, is tape that around there. So there's just a couple different ways of doing it. I kind of like this way. I feel like I don't have to be so particular, exact with making the hole, cutting the poly a little bigger. I can just use the electrical box as a guide. Still get the same result. If you were going to use acoustical to seal around these, this is the way I would do it. And then I'd peel this back, pull this back, run my acoustical on the poly back there, and stick this to it. Acoustical isn't as nice for doing these either. For one thing, it's messy, like I already mentioned. But you're pushing on nothing for 3/4 of this box, and it's hard to get that to stay stuck, right? With the tape, you're taping plastic to plastic, and I just feel like there's a much greater chance that that's going to stay sealed up, where the acoustical could eventually pull away where it's not got anything solid behind it. Oh yeah, and did I mention it's messy? Yeah, stuff gets on everything. Okay. So we've got that sealed up, just like so. If it's not quite working out for you, you can go around again with another round of tape if you really need to. Okay, I've got one more box I'm going to do here around the corner. And then we're going to go back and do our seal to the floor. Just got to be careful not to cut that vapor box behind you, or behind us. This here. With this method, if you cut the hole a little bit too small, it's not a huge deal because it'll usually kind of stretch and make this work. It's always easy to get that seal when you've got some good solid structure in behind there. It's not quite as easy to get this sealed up good because you're pushing on insulation, which doesn't give you much resistance. I don't know if you noticed, you see this blob of spray foam up in here. Once the electrician's done, I always go and spray foam where their wires come through this vapor box and go into their electrical box, into their metal box, just to give that a seal. So that's what that foam up there is all about. Okay, so we got that. Now we're going to seal this poly to the floor. So it's always nice to work from a corner outwards when you're doing this. And what we're doing is we're sealing this wall poly down to the floor and to the bottom plates. We're going to put a nice big bead down in that corner there. So the trick here is to hold your poly up out of the way while you're trying to do your acoustical. See what I'm doing here? Ooh, my acoustical's a little thick because of the temperatures here today. So I'm putting a nice generous bead there. Normally it flows way better than this, but it's a little cold. The reason we use acoustical and not just say a silicone or something is acoustical stays flexible pretty much through any temperature, so it can keep the seal well as building materials expand and contract with changes in temperature and season and whatever else. So that's why it's the preferred thing over just some normal caulking or silicone. And we know it bonds well to the polys and wood and concrete. So we got that bead down in there. Now we need to push our poly down into it and make that seal to the poly and throw a few staples in. So like I said, I like to start in the corner, and you noticed I put some going out from the corner here, both directions a little ways. That way, once I get it sealed down in the corner and go to do this other wall over here, I don't need to peel back into the corner and maybe rip my staple out or whatever. So I'm just going to be careful here not to get the poly into the acoustical until I want it into the acoustical. And I'm starting right in the corner. And you can tell once you've touched it to the acoustical, it becomes very apparent that it's stuck to the plastic. So just kind of push along there with your finger. Make sure you got poly in that corner. And I'm just putting a staple every 6 or 8 inches along the bottom there into the bottom plate. Now, if you're acousticking in an area where you could actually staple the staple right into the acoustical, that'd be ideal. But along the floor here, normally you're not going to be able to do that. Okay, so we got that going there. Now we're just going to get a couple, starting it out of this other corner. Okay, now we've got this flap, right? That's going to get cut off eventually at some point. But what I like to do is put a couple staples in it, my staples, just so nobody trips on it and rips it free from the acoustical caulking. Now I'm not going to go too far with my staples around this corner until I've continued with my acoustical. So because that's where you end up with a mess, is when you go to, you've got it stuck into some acoustical and you go to pull it out and you get all these strings of this acoustical coming out from everywhere, and before you know it, you've got it on everything. So we can just continue along here, sealing this bottom. So as you watched, I'm just holding the plastic up, the poly up, while I get my bead in place there. Piece of foam, get that out of the way. Okay, I'll just go back here and continue with making that seal and getting it stapled. So I've gotten to where I had that other plastic that was coming from the other room, and I don't know if you can tell, but there's acoustical right to that point. So I just need to get this bead all the way over to there. Just like so. Now, see the strings? That's the stuff that makes a mess. So once I've got it free from what I'm doing, I always like to put this on a piece of plastic. So if it drips out or anything, I don't get it on anything but the plastic, hopefully. Okay, so I can fold this down. Now, this is going to overlap onto that there, right? So I need to get enough acoustical from where that overlap's going to be back to right there, where we have the acoustical at the floor. I can fold this all in, make sure I'm rubbing that along there and it's made good contact. Get some staples. I can now staple up that wall a little bit, and we've got that part done. Now I can tape this joint. Just going to squeeze that acoustical right out to the edge here a little bit. So I just want to make sure that's getting right out to the edge where my tape's going to be, because then I'm going to tape up there. Okay, so I'm back to poly to poly joint, so I'm going to use the tape. I can start it down onto the floor a little ways, and then up the wall. Okay, and I would just continue that seal all the way up there. Okay, so I'm just continuing up the wall, and then I'm going to go across and seal that. Pretty self-explanatory. You should comment below if you've ever done this process before, and if you have, did you learn anything new today? Maybe you can teach me something. What's your little trick or hint or whatever for this job? Okay, so we got all those joints. Just double checking that those are all good. We're going to go across that top. Okay, nothing to that. Just go all the way around. Make sure you're getting all your laps and joints sealed up. Now, the one thing I haven't talked about is how do I seal the vapor barrier to this vinyl window jamb extension? Well, with the tape, again, it's really simple. Just move you around the corner here. So we've got our vinyl window jamb here. We've got our poly. Whoops, where are we? We've got our vinyl jamb here. We've got our poly. We're just going to simply tape the two together. We know that our front casing is usually never going to leave this front edge exposed any more than usually 1/4 of an inch. So we can even tape around onto that edge a little bit if we need to, but normally there's enough right here to get sealed to. So we've obviously insulated the window already, okay, with spray foam. Now, realistically, with this insulated with spray foam, I probably really don't need to seal the plastic poly to the vinyl window. And mainly because with a couple layers of that spray foam in there, you shouldn't get any drafts anyways. But it's just good practice to seal it to that whenever you can. This takes a little bit of practice, but normally I can kind of start my tape, bring my tape around, get it started at this corner, and roll it back into the poly. Oops. Why is that not sticking up there? The edge of my tape isn't sticky there for some reason. So you can see I've got that taped to the window and to the poly, and I would just keep continuing around my entire window just like that. If this is wood, this doesn't work as well. Then you're better off to use acoustical onto this last 2x4 that's around the window and seal the poly to there and rely on your spray foam to make the seal between that stud and the window. But whenever I can, I try to seal the poly right to the window. It's just like I said, this tape doesn't really stay stuck to wood too well. So if you've got wood jams, pretty much got to just leave it up to the spray foam to do the sealing. There. All right, there's no point in boring you with going around that whole window. You get the idea of what you got to do. So I think I'm going to wrap that up. Running out of time today to even get done here, so get this video finished up. And we did go through how you need to seal everything up, how to hang the poly, keep yourself straight so that it makes everything else simpler. And I think that's pretty straightforward on understanding how to do that. If you do have any questions, you can put them in the comments. But even better than that is going to our forum page and posting questions there. So it's Shannon. Thumbs up, subscribe. Go check out our forum. There'll be a link below this video. Anytime there's products we've used or whatever, we try to put links below the video in the video description. So go check it out. And there's always a link there to our forum and our Amazon affiliate pages as well. Thanks a lot for watching. I will get you lined up here so that hopefully you can see better. This is going to be really low, so I don't think I can get you right down. Super low. Forgot my little tripod. Try something different. Right after I make you dizzy, I'm going to stick you in this box. Oh, we made it work. I like talking to you when we're doing this. You feel like I'm not working by myself.